Towards the end of 1929, the GXE continued to sell well, but a crisis loomed for Waco. One of the great virtues of the GXE design, like the Model 9 before it, was the dirt cheap war surplus OX5 engine, but this now threatened its downfall because supplies decided to dry up. The company, now renamed the Waco Aircraft Company in recognition of the brand's popularity, had delivered 1,100 aircraft over the past 3 years, and with most of these riding behind a Curtiss OX5 engine, this accounted for close to 10% of all the OX5s in circulation. Of course, Clay Bruckner and Charlie Myers had the foresight to build the GXE with a wide variety of engines in mind, and they'd tried out many combinations, a few of which worked very well, but cost was always an issue, and one of Waco's selling points was that their aircraft were affordable. The Wright-powered Model 10 was a great aeroplane, but it was well out of reach of the common man. Truth be told, the affordable Curtiss-powered GXE was a lacklustre performer at best, and the company continued to look for a compromise solution that would provide a cheap aircraft with acceptable performance, but with a modern, reliable engine. The solution they arrived at was a simple one: to build a scaled-down GXE around a new engine that, although modestly powered by most standards, would offer a better power-to-weight ratio and, just as importantly, better reliability. The result was the RNF, which was essentially a smaller GXE with a lighter, stiffer airframe built around the 110 horsepower Warner Scarab engine. The RNF was certified in April 1930, and with its 7-cylinder radial engine up front, its looks were reminiscent of the Wright-powered ATO. Its performance wasn't quite in the same league, but it had a comfortable 10% or so advantage over the GXE that ensured its popularity from the start. The Scarab was a huge improvement over the OX5. It's worth noting that of the 25 aircraft that had completed the 1928 Ford Reliability Tour, 17 were powered by Wright J5s, including 11 of the first 12 laces. This was the tour, you'll remember, where John Wood took the trophy for Waco, and with Charlie Myers taking 4th place. And the only non-Wright powered aircraft in the top 12 was the Stinson Jr., powered by a Scarab engine. The Scarab was also cheap to run, simpler to maintain and operate than the Curtiss engines, and the RNF's certification was later revised to allow a 125 horsepower Scarab, which is the configuration modelled here. So by the summer of 1930, several further engine configurations had been tried in the new airframe, but production converged on another model, the INF, which was built around the Kinner B5, 125 horsepower, 5-cylinder radial. The RNF and the INF were still more expensive than the GXE, but the $1,000 premium delivered a much more versatile aeroplane, and while sales were relatively modest, the country was, after all, in the middle of a depression, the Fs were popular with light commercial operators as well as private pilots and flying schools. So the INF and the RNF with the 125 horsepower Scarab fitted had broadly similar performance, and they were renowned for their short field capabilities. Now again, the differences in how these two aircraft would handle are probably lost in FSX, so apart from how they look and the different cockpit layouts, they're pretty much interchangeable. In real life, these two engines would feel very different, although they're broadly equivalent in performance. The Kinner B5 is a rougher running engine. It has fewer cylinders and a longer stroke and only a single carburettor. Waco developed the F series into the 1930s, and by 1933 it had replaced the Model 10 as their general purpose 3-seater open cockpit aircraft. The company would increasingly focus on cabin biplanes, but not before they built the QCF, a refined version of the F series that came to be called the F2. The QCF was an intentionally sportier version of the F with a catalogue of innovations that included a new wing, a modified fuselage, and in particular a new engine, a 165 horsepower Continental radial. The QCF quickly established itself as the highest performing utility aircraft in its class, and within a year Waco delivered 31 of them. Although the open cockpit biplane was already nearing the end of its time, the QCF and the UBF-2 that followed it in 1932 were regarded as among the very best of their type, and to this day many consider this aircraft to be the definitive Waco. So those are the aircraft. It's a patchy and idiosyncratic history of the Wacos, but it gives something of a flavour of the sheer pace of development back in the day. In the final part we'll have a look at how these aircraft measure up in the simulator.